Hi, my name is Jacob Bash, and this is my classroom management outline. If I had my classroom, what I would do. So my starting class morning routines is I believe in movement to begin my morning. This can either be in the form of a physical or intellectual movement. Transition time might include stretching, dance, or a game. Again, I feel as if this is something that will get my students ready to rock, get their energy out, and allow them to calm down and sit and get ready to study, able to focus their energies. After transition activity, we'll have a check-in. Again, this is an informal way to check on my students' status, how their feelings and attitudes are throughout for the day to start class. If they're a 1 out of a 5 scale, then I know how to work and how to teach my lesson plan for the day. If we're doing this remote, it will be something similar, just to try to get movement during a remote learning Zoom session, get the students out of their seats so they can sit down and be ready to work, followed again by a check-in. To get my students' attention while in class, I believe in flexibility, allowing my students to work in the areas that they prefer to work, which can often lead to a noisy or cause them to come back longer after group work. The idea here is to have an understanding and come up with ideas that work for everybody with my students. I believe that if I work with them to come up with systems, it will benefit everybody and they'll come back quicker. For example, to have a code word or turn off lights for students to lower their voices and to come back as a group. Remotely, this is much more difficult. You have less control. The best way I can come up with is to call on students just to repeat what I said to make sure they're paying attention. Oftentimes, remote learning, it is something that, they have many more distractions than in regular class. And so we want to make sure that they are engaged and ready to learn. To end my lesson, before ending, I want to have something fun, something for students to laugh, get involved, and be ready to move on to their next class. I'm going to have that, and then I want to assess to make sure they understood our lesson in the form of an exit ticket or a journal or a fun quiz or a fun conversation, just to make sure that they have an understanding of what we've learned today. Not sure what that was. If it's remote, same thing. I want to have an exit ticket and some sort of discussion or a game. Between lessons, I want to create what are called energizers, something that gets the students up, moving about, again, to let off some of that energy, to break up the monotony of lectures and learning. That way they come back ready and focused. Energizers are a dance party, jumping around, stretching exercises, just different ways for students to let off some of that stress. When remote, I will have the same thing, except it will be done virtually over Zoom. I want to have the cameras on so I can watch them, and I will be joining them in dancing and giving them a break. Again, I don't necessarily believe in students just sitting at a desk and working for the entire hour lesson or however long our class is. I want my students to move, to work together, to work in the ways that they feel will benefit them the most. So I will move them to work in centers that work with their fellow classmates. This way they are more willing to share as a big group and can work together. Remote, again, I will have them in breakout sessions as much as possible because I believe in discussion and working together. Independent reading time is something that's very important. When we are in class, I will have my students allow them to read however they want, wherever they want. If they want to read under a table, in the hallway, anywhere that just lets them have a quiet time and quiet space to get their reading and their work done. Same thing if they're remote, turn their cameras off, take away the stress of being watched, and just do their silent reading together. My technology policies, I know we are in a technologically advanced world that didn't used to be this way. I would have a zero technology policy while in class unless it had to do with the assignment. I understand the phones will go off, but as long as the students know that it can't happen again. On Zoom, I would expect them to have their cameras on and muted unless told otherwise. Again, no internet, no gameplay. It will be very difficult to monitor. The best way I can come up with is to call on students and make sure they're on their feet, ready to go. Emergency policies, I will follow the schools. Emergency policies very strictly, step by step. And on Zoom, if a student has an emergency, I'll ask them to let me know, and I'll reach out to the parents immediately. Finally, parent-teacher contact in person. I'll be emailing and reaching out to each parent at least every other week. I'll be emailing them weekly, just updates of what we did during the week so we can discuss it with their children and let them know what we plan to do the following week. Again, I believe the more communication is the better learning environment for all students. And lastly, if we're remote, I'll have even more contact, emailing once a week, reaching out to the parents, making sure they're on top of it with their kids and that they are actively involved in their students' learning. Remotely, parents have a much greater responsibility, and I want to make sure they're as involved as possible. That's the start of my classroom management ideas, and I'm excited to get in the classroom and see what I can implement and what works the best.